Paul Newman, Hollywood legend, icon, and philanthropist, was known for his charm, talent, and generosity on and off the screen. But behind that charismatic smile, Newman had an unflinching view of Hollywood's darker side. In rare interviews, he didn't just celebrate his peers, he also exposed the shadows lurking behind the silver screen. According to Newman, not everyone in Hollywood's golden age lived up to their public image. Some stars, revered for their talent and fame, were, in his words, downright evil, actors who exploited, manipulated, or even tormented those around them. For decades, fans idolized these actors, believing in the myth of Hollywood glamour. But Newman knew the truth. Behind the cameras and velvet curtains, he witnessed manipulation, cruelty, and behavior that could make even the most seasoned professional shudder. The men and women he named weren't just difficult, they were destructive, leaving emotional scars on colleagues, crew, and sometimes entire productions. In this story, we dive into the shocking revelations Paul Newman shared about the most evil actors of Hollywood's golden age. From on-set cruelty to personal betrayals, these are the stories the press never published and the fans never imagined. It's a side of old Hollywood that challenges the myth, revealing that fame, talent, and charm do not always equal kindness. Paul Newman's career spanned decades, and in that time, he had a front-row seat to Hollywood's glittering facade and its darker underbelly. While fans celebrated the stars of the golden age as larger-than-life icons, Newman understood that fame often amplified the worst aspects of human behavior. To him, some actors weren't just difficult, they were manipulative, cruel, and, in his words, outright evil. Newman often described Marlon Brando as a perfect example of talent overshadowed by chaos. Brando's raw acting ability was undeniable, but Newman admitted that working with him could be a nightmare. Brando reportedly manipulated directors, rewrote scripts without permission, and belittled co-stars on set. Newman noted that while audiences adored Brando's performances, many behind the scenes endured emotional turmoil because of his unpredictable behavior. The man who brought characters to life with unparalleled intensity could simultaneously make life miserable for those around him. Then there was Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling star whose on-screen charisma belied a notorious personal life. Newman revealed that Flynn's charm was a weapon as much as a talent. Off-camera, Flynn engaged in reckless behavior, mistreated colleagues, and left a trail of broken relationships in his wake. Newman recalled hearing stories of production delays caused by Flynn's irresponsibility, often at the expense of cast and crew who were left scrambling to salvage scenes. While audiences loved Flynn's dashing persona, those working closely with him knew a far darker reality. Newman also criticized John Wayne, a Hollywood icon whose name was synonymous with rugged masculinity. Behind the public image, Newman noted, Wayne could be domineering and intolerant of anyone who didn't conform to his vision. Crew members and co-stars often felt stifled under his commanding presence. Newman didn't suggest that Wayne was evil in every aspect of life, but he stressed that the actor's rigid sense of authority often created a toxic environment on set, leaving others feeling undervalued and dismissed. Another figure Newman highlighted was Humphrey Bogart, revered for his cool, hard-edged performances. While Bogart was charming and witty off-screen, Newman hinted that his personal relationships could be manipulative. Bogart reportedly used his influence to intimidate others or bend situations to his advantage. Newman admitted that working with actors of such stature required constant vigilance. Their fame allowed them to act with impunity, and those without power often bore the consequences. According to Newman, these evil actors shared common traits: an obsession with control, a willingness to manipulate or belittle others, and an unshakable belief that talent excused poor behavior. The studio system of the time exacerbated this behavior, rewarding box office draw over kindness or professionalism. Newman often reflected on the moral compromises required to navigate such an environment and how these actors' behavior left lasting scars on both projects and people. Yet, Newman's critique wasn't about resentment. He admired talent, and he often worked alongside some of the same actors he criticized. But he believed in honesty over myth-making. For him, understanding Hollywood's dark side didn't diminish the magic of the films. It revealed the human cost behind them. And for those willing to look beyond the glittering facade, Newman's revelations painted a more complex, sometimes troubling, picture of an era that seemed perfect from afar, but was riddled with ego, cruelty, and manipulation. Paul Newman's observations of Hollywood's golden age weren't just about egos clashing on set. They were about the darker human behaviors that left lasting scars. In interviews, he revealed that some of the actors he worked with weren't merely difficult. They actively undermined their colleagues, creating environments filled with tension, fear, and emotional distress. One of the most notorious examples Newman cited was Bette Davis, whose legendary talent was matched by a fiery, sometimes ruthless personality. While Davis delivered iconic performances, she was known for intimidating co-stars and asserting control over productions. Newman recounted stories of younger actors who were intimidated by her intensity, afraid to make mistakes for fear of verbal lashings. For Davis, power was paramount, and she often used it to dominate scenes, even if it meant others were humiliated. Though Newman respected her craft, he also recognized the damage her behavior caused. Then there was James Cagney, an actor admired for his toughness on screen. Behind the scenes, however, Newman claimed that Cagney could be manipulative and vindictive. He reportedly held grudges against anyone who disagreed with him or threatened his position, sometimes going so far as to influence directors to cut others' screen time or rewrite lines to diminish their impact. Newman noted that this kind of behavior was subtle, yet insidious. It didn't make headlines but left deep professional and personal wounds. Newman also spoke about Vivien Leigh, celebrated for her elegance and dramatic roles. Off-camera, Leigh could be cruel and unpredictable, often testing the patience of co-stars and crew. Newman suggested that her personal struggles with mental health sometimes manifested as manipulative or harsh behavior, and those working with her learned to navigate her moods carefully. He didn't excuse her actions, but emphasized how fame and talent sometimes gave people license to act without accountability. Equally troubling was Laurence Olivier, who, despite being hailed as one of the greatest actors of all time, could be domineering and egotistical in private. Newman shared that Olivier often belittled his co-stars, using his reputation as a weapon to assert authority. Scenes could be ruined not because of a lack of skill, but because Olivier sought to assert dominance, forcing others to conform to his vision. Newman's reflections suggested that Olivier's brilliance came with a heavy human cost, leaving colleagues anxious and marginalized. Newman's insights weren't just anecdotes, they highlighted a pattern in Hollywood's golden age. He noticed that actors who wielded fame as power often treated others as disposable. Emotional cruelty, professional sabotage, and personal betrayals were common, yet rarely documented publicly. Studios turned a blind eye if a star's behavior didn't hurt box office results, and the industry often rewarded charisma over decency. Despite the harshness, Newman never lost his own moral compass. He made it clear that calling these actors evil wasn't about jealousy or resentment. It was about truth. He wanted audiences and aspiring actors to understand that fame doesn't always equate to virtue, and talent can coexist with cruelty. Newman's observations shed light on the complexity of human behavior in Hollywood, where glamour often masked a darker reality, and legends were not always heroes in private. Paul Newman's warnings about the most evil actors of Hollywood's golden age weren't just idle gossip, they reflected real consequences for productions, co-stars, and crew members. The behavior of these powerful figures often rippled far beyond their immediate circles, affecting the morale, creativity, and sometimes the careers of everyone involved. Newman recalled John Barrymore, whose legendary talent and commanding presence often intimidated those around him. On set, Barrymore's erratic behavior could derail entire scenes. His drinking and unpredictable moods left directors scrambling to maintain continuity, while co-stars struggled to perform under the constant tension. According to Newman, the impact went beyond simple frustration. Some promising young actors lost confidence, feeling overshadowed or undermined by Barrymore's dominance. In a world where reputation was everything, the emotional toll could be devastating. Another figure Newman criticized was Marlon Brando, whose genius came at a price. Beyond manipulating scenes and rewriting scripts, Brando reportedly humiliated co-stars to assert control. Newman explained that Brando's behavior often left others second-guessing their abilities, creating an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty on set. Productions that should have run smoothly were sometimes slowed down, delayed, or even jeopardized because Brando refused to compromise. For Newman, this highlighted a troubling pattern in Hollywood. Talent was often used as a shield for unacceptable behavior. Bette Davis also made a lasting mark in this regard. While her performances were iconic, her domineering tendencies created tension during filming. Newman recalled hearing stories of actors being reduced to tears, while crew members endured verbal tirades for minor mistakes. The psychological toll of working with such actors could be significant. Yet studios rarely intervened. Davis's box office draw outweighed any concerns about morale. Even the behind-the-scenes giants like Laurence Olivier left their imprint. Newman noted that Olivier's insistence on perfection often tipped into cruelty. Co-stars who questioned his methods were sidelined or publicly embarrassed, creating a culture of fear on set. While the films themselves were often masterpieces, Newman observed that the human cost behind the camera was rarely acknowledged. Careers could be stunted, confidence shattered, and creative collaboration compromised, all in the name of upholding a star's image. Newman also revealed that this culture of cruelty extended to lesser-known figures who were rising in the industry. Ambitious young actors often learned quickly that navigating Hollywood required more than talent. It demanded emotional armor. Seeing how stars treated others, they had to decide whether to emulate the behavior of those in power or risk being marginalized. Newman believed that this cycle perpetuated the darker side of Hollywood, where personal gain often outweighed decency. For Newman, speaking openly about these actors wasn't about tarnishing their legacies. It was about exposing a truth long hidden from the public. He wanted to show that behind the glamorous premieres and red carpet smiles, there were human beings capable of cruelty, manipulation, and self-interest. The ripple effects of their behavior went beyond a single production. They shaped careers, altered relationships, and left a permanent mark on Hollywood's culture. By sharing these stories, Newman highlighted the duality of fame. Extraordinary talent could coexist with deeply flawed human behavior. His reflections remind us that while the Golden Age produced some of cinema's most cherished classics, it was also an era in which personal egos and destructive tendencies often thrived unchecked, leaving scars on all who worked within its glittering but unforgiving world. Paul Newman's reflections on the most evil actors of Hollywood's Golden Age reveal more than just scandalous anecdotes. They offer a powerful lesson about the nature of fame, talent, and human behavior. While he never sought to destroy anyone's legacy, Newman believed that honesty was essential to understanding the true history of the industry. Behind the glamour, red carpets, and roaring audiences, there was a hidden reality that often went unspoken. Talent and virtue were not always aligned. Newman frequently emphasized that his critiques were grounded in respect for the craft. He loved acting and filmmaking and admired those who approached their work with integrity, discipline, and generosity. What disturbed him were actors who used their skill as a shield for cruelty, who allowed their egos to dictate behavior, and who inflicted emotional harm on colleagues for personal gain. By naming the evil actors he had witnessed, Newman shed light on the invisible consequences of unchecked power in Hollywood. One of the most important aspects of Newman's observations was his insistence that the industry itself enabled such behavior. Studios, desperate for box office success, often overlooked abusive or manipulative actions if the star in question could guarantee ticket sales. This systemic tolerance of bad behavior created an environment where personal ethics were frequently sacrificed for profit. Newman recognized this dynamic and worked to rise above it, striving to maintain both professionalism and humanity throughout his career. Newman also stressed the ripple effect these behaviors had on future generations. Young actors entering Hollywood often observed these patterns and faced a difficult choice: emulate the egos of the powerful or risk being sidelined. He worried that if left unchecked, the industry would continue to reward talent at the expense of decency. For Newman, calling out the worst offenders wasn't about bitterness, it was about providing a cautionary tale for those who would follow. Despite witnessing the dark side of Hollywood, Newman's own career was marked by collaboration, respect, and generosity. His ability to navigate fame without succumbing to ego made him a rare exception in an era dominated by larger-than-life personalities. By openly acknowledging the destructive tendencies of others, Newman reinforced his reputation as someone who valued both artistry and humanity, refusing to let his experiences be sanitized for public consumption. In the end, Newman's revelations paint a complex picture of Hollywood's golden age. It was an era that produced some of cinema's most enduring masterpieces, yet it was also one where personal ambition often overshadowed compassion. Actors could be brilliant on screen, yet cruel off it, leaving colleagues and crews to navigate a minefield of emotional and professional challenges. For audiences and aspiring actors alike, Newman's insights serve as both a warning and a guide. They remind us that fame and talent do not automatically confer moral authority, and that the allure of Hollywood can sometimes mask deeply troubling behaviors. More importantly, Newman's honesty reinforces the idea that integrity, kindness, and professionalism are timeless virtues, even in a world obsessed with glamour and stardom. By speaking the truth about the most evil actors, Paul Newman ensured that history would remember both the brilliance and the darkness of Hollywood's golden age. His words serve as a lasting testament to the importance of standing up for what is right, even when surrounded by the brightest lights and the most powerful egos.